Welcome to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I am your host, Rob Gauthier, the ET Whisperer. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour is a part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Any ideas expressed by the guest, myself, or commenters may not necessarily reflect the same opinions of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Enlightenment defined. It is the state of giving or receiving greater knowledge and understanding about a certain subject or situation. Evolution defined. The gradual development of something, especially from a simple to more complex form. So what is Enlightenment evolution? The state of giving and receiving greater knowledge as we develop from a simple to more complex human being living on Earth for our soul's experience. Welcome now and join us as we explore our Enlightenment Evolution Hour together. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour is simulcast live every Wednesday at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific from the Enlightenment Evolution Hour page, Matrix Minds Facebook page, and the ET Whisper YouTube channel. It is also redistributed from the Forbidden Knowledge News Network and Conscious Awakening Network. Hey, welcome everybody back to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I have missed you guys tremendously. Life has been insane. This is why you've seen me 2 times in the last 6 weeks or so. Everything is what it is. Life is life, as you guys know, with the kids and with channeling and with the work that I do. Things go a little crazy sometimes, but we're back in action. We've got an amazing guest today, and we also are going to have amazing guests next week. So let's get into the thing that some of you love and some of you don't. The announcements for the show. We're going to do the announcements for the show next week. We have a guest, Tom Palladino, who is a person who deals with a very interesting technology, and this technology is something that he's going to talk a lot about. And this is something that actually Ardef has talked about. That's how I heard about it first. Ardef had talked to a person who had a session about scalar technology, and we're going to bring him on and talk to him about that next week. Also, for the Enlightenment Evolution Network, the announcements are that we have the show that is every Tuesday and Wednesday on Instagram Live. That's called Out There Talk with Valiant himself. It's on at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time every week, or every Tuesday and Wednesday of every week. And if you want to go there tonight at 11:59 p.m., you can go there and join. And he will be on Instagram Live. You go to @OutThereTalk, and myself and Kalina have both been on his show. Many of the guests that have been here have gone over to his show. It's an amazing show about all things that are out there. The Mothership will be back as a show, weekly or bi-weekly, probably in the next 2 months. One of the hosts there, SPG, who's also been on the show, he is going through another surgery. He just had that massive surgery. He's going through another one. So that will be coming soon. Announcements for the ET Whisper. We just released a blast email last night. So if you're not on the email list and you want to be there, that's where almost all of the heads up comes. Also, that's where we give all of our discounts for ET Whispers on the email list. We just put out a blast about the new session types. Instead of waiting 3 months like you used to have to wait to get a session with Treb or Ardef, now you can send in 3 questions, sometimes on the same day if it's a slow week, but always the same week. If you sign up for those on etwhisper.com, you can ask Treb or Ardef 3 questions, and those questions will be sent back to you within 24 hours to 48 hours of doing that session. So it's really an amazing thing. A lot of people have loved it. Also, Conscious Life Expo is coming next month, just in a few weeks. I will be there in Los Angeles. If you want to go to the website, you can use my affiliate link and get yourself some tickets there. I'm doing a 90-minute workshop, 45-minute workshop. Both of those are free to the public. If you have a ticket to be at the expo, you can go to those for free. And I'll be sitting in a booth for 3 days. Come out and hang out with me if you're in the LA area, or if you plan on being at the Conscious Life Expo. Then in March, we have the Sedona Ascension Retreat, which is an amazing thing. Daryl Anka will be there channeling. A lot of my friends are going to be there. People that you guys know who have been on the show, who have been regularly on the show, including Daryl Anka, including dear friend Wendy Kennedy, Sean Swanson. They're also going to have some other amazing presenters there who I've not met, but who are pretty iconic in the industry. Linda Moulton Howe. And many others. You can go to the website, Easy Whisper, and you can click on those links and it'll take you to the information. That time I'll be doing a outdoor retreat on the first day, and I'll be doing a galactic channeling panel with Ruben Langdon. And then on the third day, I will be doing a workshop, and that workshop will be awesome. I think it's going to be on connection to your guides and help enhance what people have learned about learning how to channel for themselves, things like that. So check out the website. There's that. I'm also going to be in Mount Shasta in June with Ruben Langdon, who him and a few of his friends are creating events. That's going to happen. I'm also going to be in New York in August with my dear friend Jim Charles from the Human Colonies. Amazing dude. I'm going to be there hanging out for 5 days out in the woods. They rented out a whole nature area with a lake. It's going to be wonderful. All that stuff will be up on the website as soon as I get more details on that. But I'm going to shut up about announcements because I've already blew through 6 minutes that I never wanted to blow through in that time. Sorry for dragging you guys through that. But I want to introduce our guest today. Dr. Yafi Yair is here with us. She is a doctor of clinical psychology and hypnosis, combines her expertise in holistic wellness and spiritual exploration, and as a graduate of channeling training under Lyssa Royal Holt, also an amazing person, also a person who's great, who's in this community. She brings messages from an array of sources, including the Divine Feminine Hathor, Earth Elements, Fairies, Extraterrestrials. Dr. Yafi also authored the book Conversations with Earth, Channeling on Human Consciousness and the Shift. I could talk to you guys about who she is, what she does for probably a whole hour myself, but instead, I think we bring her in to let her introduce herself. Hello, Yafi. Welcome with us. I appreciate you being here with us today.
Hi, Rob. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm grateful to have you here, and I really haven't had a chance to get to know you real well, and these shows are always special for me
Mhm.
because these are the getting to know you well moments of our experience and exchange. So I want to start with you where I start with all the guests. I want to know your story, but before I know your story, I want to know how you were shaped as you know in your young childhood, your early adulthood, your teenage
Mhm.
years. What were the things that kind of shaped you into being the person who would then later be receptive to being, uh, a major in psychology, working with hypnosis, doing channeling, energy work?
Mhm.
How did that happen?
Yeah. So I was I was born with a split, half really strong, half brain, scientific mind, good at math, but also like really creative, sensitive. So I was born with both. And as a result, I kind of got both reinforcement and discouragement from the environment, both to encourage and repress anything like psychic or intuitive. So, for example, I grew up in a very, very secular environment. My parents did not believe in anything. But on the other hand, I was extremely curious, and so was my mom. And when I asked her, and I did that very frequently, Mom, is it possible that blah, 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 blah? She would always answer, Yafi, anything is possible. And that would just blow my mind as a child. As an adult, I'm so grateful that she had the the openness and the enlightenment to answer that and to see the world in that way. Especially as, again, she was very secular, very skeptic, but she allowed me to be extremely open. And that allowed me to harness my creativity and my sensitivity, even in ways that my parents themselves were not able to accept. So that was definitely a part of it. Now, another experience that I had um, that was really significant for me was when I was about 8 years old. I had my first and main, really, UFO sighting. And it was a real spiritual experience before I knew what a spiritual experience was. And it was basically, I was playing with a friend of mine on the grass. We were doing flips and all kind of fun things that kids do. And it was daylight, so broad daylight, and we saw this light in the sky. And we stopped our playing and we both looked up just in awe. I don't know why even we were so impressed with this just light in the sky. And after it got our attention for a while, it started zigzagging. It did these 3 rounded zigzags and then took off really fast. And we immediately knew, both me and her, that we saw something special and unique beyond this world. It was so obvious to me. There was, yeah, outside of our world, beyond our reality. And that made the mysterious world that I was already so interested in real. That gave me the validation that my parents, for example, as skeptics and uh, non-believers, couldn't. So that was really significant for me.
Well, that's first of all, it's a beautiful story to hear people who have supportive, loving parents who, despite their own beliefs, teach you to keep an open mind. And even if they weren't open-minded about certain aspects, they told you that you should be. And I think that's beautiful.
Mhm.
I think that's the best gift we can give to our own children, is tell them, hey, we might believe this way, but always be able to believe what you know and what you can understand. And they basically, they allowed you the simplicity of knowing, basic reality, but also the ability to have magic in your life too, which is really important as a kid. So um,
Exactly.
thank you for sharing that. And so after you have these experiences as a kid that are kind of magical, take us from there to your story. Tell us how you became involved first, with maybe your psychology degree, and how you went from there to hypnosis, and then how that transitioned into the greater channeling and all the work that you do now.
Hmm. Yeah, so I thought psychology was the perfect fit for me. As one who's been always fascinated with the human mind and potential and exploration, I thought it was absolutely a match made in heaven. But the closest I got to graduating, the more I realized that the clinical field is not as open to exploration, really, as I wanted it to be. And also, the closest I got to graduating, the more I got into hypnosis. And that was really my gateway of using my clinical experience and background and getting into the spiritual world. Because first I was trained in hypnosis, again, clinical hypnosis. And then I discovered Brian Weiss, who is, for me, was the father of past life regression. And that was just, again, mind blowing, beautiful, mind expanding. How beautiful it is that we can explore with clinical tools the human spirit in that way. And a few years later, that's in terms of the hypnosis, I learned of Dolores Cannon. And of course, again, that was another trip, mind expanding, that we can go even deeper. And it's not only about past lives that are not really past or parallel, but there are also this whole spiritual world. So my understanding kept on growing and opening up. And at the same time, I had a spiritual awakening. So my mother crossed over in 2012, And that boosted my spiritual journey even more. It became very personal. I wanted to experience the spiritual world, especially now that I became a believer. I wanted to contact her. I wanted to have experiences. And that gave me huge motivation. I started meditating. Actually, before she got sick, I started meditating daily. So my higher self, the universe, was preparing me. I started reading books about spirituality and mediumship and all kind of things, maybe 6 months before my mom got sick. So it really was like the universe was preparing me. So I was connecting to my intuition and exploring both in reading, but personal experiences. And then my mom crossed over and I had all these amazing experiences with her. And my intuition got stronger and stronger. And at first, I started doing readings for just friends and family and recording everything. So every time I gave a reading, I was playing around with my husband with cards and stuff. We would record exact prediction so we can later go back to and see what, if anything was right, wrong, misinterpreted, etc. And we did discover that the accuracy rate was amazing. It's even possible that everything was accurate unless I misinterpreted something. And after a few years of that, I felt comfortable giving readings professionally. So I started doing that, which is again a step further away from the clinical world. And approximately 3 years ago, um, in the light of COVID and shutdowns and the world becoming crazier and crazier, I decided to completely devote myself to channeling. And that's when I took Lyssa Royal Holt's long form channeling training. I think it was 6 or 7 months of training, including breath work and meditations and body work and channeling practices. I really, really dove in. And I had all the time in the world to do so. And that changed my life even more. And now I consider myself that I've moved away completely from the clinical world. Although I still offer counseling and hypnosis, I still love hypnosis. But my focus, both in my career and in my personal life, has shifted to completely spiritual and consciousness based. So I've completely embraced myself as a consciousness explorer, moving away from the more mundane understanding of the human mind.
I really love the arc of going from that clinical, professional, psychological setting, and I do understand that world a little bit. My wife's father has his master's degree in psychology and did counseling for decades, and the stories that he would share would be heartbreaking, because there's, he's spiritually inclinated, and there's a lot of issues between that spiritual world and the clinical psychology world that really can disempower people and really separate that
Mhm.
energy of the spirit to that. So I love hearing that. And the experience that you had in channeling, can you kind of share us how, like, the more specific time period between like when you did meditations, your mom passed, to the channeling, and um honestly, to speak about that too real quickly, I think
Mhm.
hearing that your mother passed was another area where your consciousness expanded out and grew. I love to
Mhm.
hear that. um I've heard that from a few people. And for me, it actually did a bit of the opposite. When my dad passed, I
Mm.
was already channeling. I had
Mhm.
already been kind of channeling professionally for a while. He passed in 2015, and that actually set me back a bit,
Mhm.
because I couldn't connect with his energy for months. There was a
Mm.
lot of grief there and
Yes.
a lot of energy there. So for me, I always am fascinated to hear when people who have loved ones pass, how easily they connect with them, and how much that helps grow their spiritual journey. But
Mhm.
can you take us kind of from where your mom passed into where you started channeling, and kind of maybe share a little bit about your very first experience of connecting with an external consciousness?
Sure. So, in terms of my mom, there was really an arc in terms of her also progress and process after she transitioned. So to touch this quickly, so right after she transitioned, for a few days she was super present. Well, for 2 hours actually, I could not detect her at all, and I was almost panicking. So for 2 hours after she transitioned, I understood as her being in kind of limbo, not here and not there, and I could not feel her and I could not contact her. About 2 hours after, she became very, very, very present, to the extent that I wasn't really, I didn't consider myself psychic back then. I was only starting to tap into my intuition. And she was so present, she would like argue with me in my head. And if I didn't agree with her or listen to what she said, she would poke my finger. Like it was so there. And of course, I was almost annoyed. I was like, Mom, stop it. And then, of course, when it went away, after a few days, I missed it and I wanted it back, but it didn't stay that way. So then I started trying to contact her through lucid dreaming and through physical manifestations, specifically electrical stuff. And I had succeeded. So I contacted her several times through lucid dreaming. And it wasn't really a lucid dream. It was through the dream we met astrally. And that had some interesting arcs as well, as at first it was mostly initiated by me, although she had to initiate it as well. So it was initiated by both, but I was a really driving force there. And about a couple of years after she has transitioned, while I was at the Monroe Institute, which I'm a frequent visitor there, she had a visitation that she initiated completely. And it was her environment. She played some really cool guitar music in the background. And for the first time, I heard her voice in English and in my head. So she wasn't speaking Hebrew and she wasn't trying to speak. It was just natural and it was all consciousness based. And she explained to me that it took her 2 years, it took her that long to be able to reach that point where she can contact me clearly and communicate clearly. And that was very moving and very beautiful. And
Oh, I can't imagine how beautiful that was for you.
yeah. And what's a little strange that since then, she has been visiting me much, much less. So it seems that once you reach that point of freedom, and that's my word, my interpretation, that she didn't have as much need to come back. And I am freely releasing her to do whatever she needs to do in the spirit world. So it has changed. Now, from there to channeling. So the whole experience with my mom obviously opened me up more in terms of psychically, but also like intellectually accepting it all. And so that was a big, big part of it. And how did I get into channeling? I think the combination of hypnosis and conducting hypnosis, so others were really channeling, although I didn't see it that way at the time. I didn't have that concept. And myself conducting psychic reading, so connecting to my intuition that way. And again, daily meditation, I would say, was the number one tool in developing my intuition. Intention plus meditation. I would say nothing comes even close to it in terms of tools, practical tools. And I completely dove in. So now when I started channeling, I channeled a few times before the class with Lyssa, but I kind of wasn't sold on it. As you probably know, channeling is not, unless you're like Edgar Casey and you go to sleep and you have no idea what's going on and then you wake up. Channeling is a lot more subtle than this and a lot more integrative than this, which, by the way, is another topic. But I think there's a reason today most of the channelers are not like Edgar Casey. I think we are in a more integrated time on Earth and in our own consciousness that we need to be awake and aware and alert in order to fully integrate that process of merging with those entities that we're merging with. So I've channeled before, but I wasn't completely sold on it. Maybe my left brain or skeptic mind needed the structure of the training and the guidance and support of Lyssa and everybody else to really allow myself to be in that space and allow whatever comes up to come up without stopping it, without judging it in any way. And the first few beings that came through me were Jesus, Hathor, and earth elements. So like fire, water, wind. I think I channeled the moon. So stuff like that. So these were, I would say Jesus. Yeah, Jesus was my first full experience within the context of when I dedicated myself to channeling, to have come through with some regularity. And let me tell you, that was a shock because I'm Jewish. I was raised in Israel, so I didn't really even have a good concept of Jesus. It sounds weird for people who grew up here, but growing up in Israel, Jesus was almost like a far story that I didn't know anything about Jesus. I just
Right. That's barely
it's
any
so
reference
difficult.
there.
Yeah, it's so difficult to explain to people who grew up here that it's so taken for granted. But I didn't have a concept for Jesus, and not only that, the first time Jesus came through, Lyssa was the one who felt that this was the energy that wanted to come through, and she gave me his ascended name, Sananda or something like that, I think. And I didn't even know who I was channeling. I didn't know it was Jesus. So I was really surprised. Like, I didn't know who I was channeling. So I was given this name and I was connecting to the energy, and it felt grand and filled with light and love and compassion. And I just assumed that it was one of my spirit guides. I didn't know it was Jesus. And that was, I think, the first energy that I channeled with the guidance of Lyssa. So it was actually Jesus. And the second entity that came through with regularity was Hathor, which again, I've never heard the name Hathor before. So I had no concept of who or what to expect. And in fact, the name Hathor sounded very masculine, very manly to me. So I expected, like, it sounded like Hathor, the warrior.
Right, right.
That's what it sounded like. And when I started channeling her, it was this beautiful feminine flow, so gentle and so beyond what was familiar to me. And I just love it. I felt like I fell in love with Hathor the first time I channeled her. I just thought it was an amazing experience. It left such an impression. And in fact, I recently found an email I wrote Lyssa. And after the first time I channeled Hathor, and I wrote to her, I just channeled Hathor from the energies you've selected for me. I don't know who or what is Hathor, but she came through loud and clear, and I love her. Something along these lines. And the second time I channeled Hathor, that's when she said that based on mutual agreement and enthusiasm, we're going to continue working together. And even then, I didn't realize what a long-term relationship it was going to be. And I had no idea the impact it was going to have on me. I knew it was a personal journey. I knew it was a continuance of the work that I've been doing, of being a clear channel, as an intuitive and as a person. Clear channel for light, clear channel for the divine, for love. So I knew it was a continuance of that work, but I had no idea at all that in opening myself to that energy, especially so regularly, and merging my essence with their essence, again, especially so regularly, was going to fundamentally change my own texture to include that flow and that gentleness that that source, Hathor, the divine feminine, offers. And that's, I guess I haven't mentioned that, but through me, Hathor presents as the divine feminine. And she explained that. They call themselves they use plural, but I often say she, I alternate. Um, she explained that Hathor is one, but many, many names that this essence was given over the years by different civilizations, different times, different situations. But it's a pathway of the divine feminine.
I love that, and I've always my guides have always kind of shared that the Hathor was a large Earth-based collective, and that they really
Mm-hmm.
worked with humans in an intense way throughout our history of being humans. So that tracks too, and makes a lot of sense. I want to talk about a
Mm-hmm.
couple things you mentioned too, because a lot of synchronicities. First, the Hemi Sing or the Gate Monroe Institute. This is
Mm-hmm.
something that's near and dear to my own heart. It brought my own level of meditation up before I ended up meeting my first guide Treb, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's a dear thing to my heart, and I'm glad to hear that that's where you had the breakthrough with your mom. And the second thing, Lissa's amazing. I just got my first
Mm-hmm.
chance to meet her when I was in Arizona back in October, and she's going to be coming to our channel panel event next year, and I'm really looking forward to her. I've known her for a few years, talking to her and communicating
Mm-hmm.
through email, but she's amazing. So with a teacher like that, I'm not surprised at all that you're able
Mm-hmm.
to break through, because she really is one of the best out there as it comes. The third thing I wanted to mention, um, you talked about Edgar Casey and how
Mm-hmm.
he kind of disappears. I'm not a conscious channeler. I'm one of the
Mm-hmm.
very few that I know that's actually a full-blown trance
Mm-hmm.
channeler. I go into that trance and I'm out. And I think the
And you
reason
don't
for
remember anything when you get back?
nothing. Well,
Wow.
it's something that's weird for me. I've never met someone who's channeled like I do.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm out, I'm actually astral projected out, hanging out
Mm-hmm.
with my guide Treb. So me and
Mm-hmm.
him just spend time together. So it's like I'm in a dream state with him,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember nothing. But when I listen back, I can process. Like, I know the answers before they're spoken, because they said, well, the information goes through you, so it's a part of
Mm-hmm.
you. You'll know it.
Yes.
But so it's always interesting to talk. My wife's a conscious channeler, so I
Mm-hmm.
know the conscious channel, and I've even taught people to conscious channel, even though I've never
Mm-hmm.
done it. I have
Mm-hmm.
done it, but I don't do it in practice.
Mm-hmm.
Professionally, I only trance channel. But um, so I consider myself a dinosaur, because I think you're right. The energy of that whole conscious channeling is the new wave human connection. And I know for me, the
Mm-hmm.
reason why it had to come through that way is because at that part of my life, even though I was allowing some magic, my mind was too heavily integrated into mental only, and I still had to
Mm-hmm.
process. And there's no way I could have gotten through 10 minutes of a chat without stopping every 5 seconds and say,
Mm-hmm.
hold on, what about this? You know what I mean? So
Yes.
I love the fact that the conscious channeling energy is more relevant out there. So that's something I wanted to ask about. When
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to the conscious channeling, this is the number one thing I teach people how to channel, and most people have this problem. We even seen it once in the chat here on the show. How
Mm-hmm.
do you know that what's coming through is not of yourself, or
Mm-hmm.
is the source that they say they are? Because this is probably the biggest hurdle besides self trust. The
Mm-hmm.
next biggest hurdle is not trusting what comes in.
But I think it is self-trust. I think it's all intertwined.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of answers to that. So one aspect of it is really doing the work that I mentioned before of being clear. You really, really need to know yourself. You need to know your inner conversations. You need to know your insecurities. You need to know what insecure conversations come up. What's your signature behaviors? That's one of Lyssa's terminology. So you really, really need to know yourself. So that will help you discern when it's you. Now, it's not that you need to sit in the background, in the back there, and think, is it me, is it not? That's only going to obviously hinder the process. but you do have to know yourself, and you do have to work on being clear. If you have a lot of emotional issues or a lot of distractions, you're not going to be a clear channel, and that process is going to be mangled, and it's going to be very, very difficult to know what is coming from you and what is not. So that is one big part of it. And that also where self-trust comes in. You have, at the beginning, it was hard for me to tell the difference between improvising, as in acting, and channeling. I would ask myself, what really is the difference? Because I'm closing my eyes, I'm going inward, I still know who I am. So what is the difference here? And the answer that I came up with is my intention. So when I start to channel, of course, I have a structure, I have an invocation, I did the long form training, I practiced 5 times a week for months, but also I practiced that form of self-trust, of being in that flow and allowing whatever comes up without me as Yafi interfering. So the flow is completely spontaneous. And to go to what I started saying before, what's the difference is my intention. So when I close my eyes, when I go inward, when I say my invocation, my intention is very, very clear, that I'm opening to the spiritual source, that for channeling. So because my intention is clear, that's what makes a difference. So I'm there, I'm present, I'm open, I'm sharp with my intention, but I'm relaxed. And that's how the flow comes in.
That makes sense. And the trust thing, you're right. There is a trust level with yourself that has to be present, and that is the same thing as knowing yourself, because that's how you develop trust, by truly knowing yourself. And I really
That's
like
right.
that. I really love that. And I think too, one of the things that's in the similar vein, and kind of the example that I was pulling from the chat, was someone who said that they receive messages from their parents, but they're not quite sure
Mm-hmm.
what of that applies to actual connection to the parents versus what's inside of them. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that when the stakes are raised, I find that a lot of psychics have harder time reading for themselves than others, because there's an attachment to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm invested in the outcome of this specific thing, and if it doesn't do this, then I'm going to have a harder time trying to figure out if that's me or if it's not, because I want that to be true, but I don't know if it's me just wanting it to be true or not. Where when you're reading for a stranger, you have none of those attachments. um,
Absolutely.
have you ever found that to be true with yourself when you first started, like those kind of mental attachments, or doing it for friends versus doing it for stranger? Was that ever an issue for you, or had you gone
Yes.
past that?
No, absolutely. So I would say that still reading for myself can be tricky. So even though I'm not a beginner, it still can be tricky. Now, in terms of reading for friends and family versus strangers, I trust what I get, but when especially when I do readings, it's not the same as channeling. I am with my eyes are open, I'm conscious and alert, and the information is still coming through me and I connect to their energy. So when I do, let's say, a reading for my sister, I'm getting certain information and then I have to interpret it. So now the interpreting part gets really tricky because I know her and I know things about her. So that's when it gets tricky, reading for someone that I know well, not in getting the information, but applying it correctly, because I don't know if I'm interpreting based on what I already know about them, or it's purely by the impression that is coming through. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
the interpretation is what's difficult. Now, reading for myself, the interpretation is actually not difficult. What's difficult then is separating, like you said, the attachment, so the emotion. If I really want something, it's going to be very difficult for me to discern whether my intuition is saying yes or no on it, because I really want it.
Yeah.
So it obscures what's what. So that's where I guess being an unconscious channeler can be an advantage, because in some ways you cannot get in the way. But
Yeah.
now when yes, but now when I'm channeling, sometimes with my small group, I do insert questions for me. So with my group, I channel every Sunday, and we always come up with the first few questions. There are people that are going to ask questions, and sometimes I'll get in my question. Yafi wants to know blah 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 blah. When is physical contact going to happen? So in the past, I would say, don't ask my question first, or don't even tell me when you're asking my question. So I don't, so it will reduce the likelihood of me getting in the way. Now I think it's no longer an issue. I think nothing is, everything is dynamic and always changing. But
Well, it's
now
hard to tell too with the channeling thing.
yes.
Even trance channelers have filters. Every
Mhm.
channeler has a level of filtering
Yes.
at some point, but that's a whole other topic. Sorry to interrupt
Mhm.
you. Please continue.
No, no, you're exactly correctly. We all have our filter. Just by us being, every human, every personality has a filter. Every brain has a filter. So absolutely. But obviously, the more conscious you are, the more this filter can be in the way, the more it can take space.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And speaking of filtering and the conditioning and the human thing, something that you said earlier drew my interest. And do you mind if I ask you some questions about your time in Israel?
Go ahead.
Um, when you were there, how long did you live there?
So I was born there and I left when I was 19.
Okay, so you had a fair amount of time there. Then
Yes.
your whole development as a person kind of came from there.
Mhm.
Did you study in religion? Did you was your family into the Jewish religion?
No, my parents were very, very secular, which is actually true about most of Israel. So, Jewish Americans tend to be more connected to the religion than
Right.
Israelis. In Israel, you have the Orthodox, which are very, very religious, and the rest of the population is mostly secular. And
I
my parents were my mom was an intellectual. They were both very, very secular. My dad was the kind of person who just cares about life and work, and that's it. And my mom was very open and curious, but didn't believe in anything that she couldn't prove.
Yeah, and I've forgotten that you had said that they didn't do that. But was the reason I'm asking, was there any
Hmm.
of the Jewish tradition or religion that seeped into your awareness? I mean, did you understand the tenets and the basic ideology of
Hmm.
the Jewish religion?
So for me, Judaism was a culture, not a religion. So growing up in Israel, you grow up with the holidays and the tradition and the culture, but because of the secular context, it's removed from actual faith and religion. So that is how I grew. So I grew up without any concept of faith and of God or godhood. I really grew up with no concept of that at all. So even though I grew up in Israel, my spiritual journey and development was it started in Israel, but it was really mainly when I left Israel and I could begin exploring as an individual away from my family and their restrictions.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I did study Kabbalah a little bit, but again, I studied Kabbalah in New York, not in Israel.
Right. Well, it's always interesting because people who are born here in America and who have spent multiple decades in America, they kind of get this exposure to Christianity as even
Hmm.
people who don't celebrate it or don't practice it. There's a
Exactly.
seeping in of that, and that becomes a part of the filtration system of their understanding. Even if they don't believe
Hmm.
in it, they understand that principle in some aspects. I mean, look at the
Hmm.
governments around the world, how they base their laws and ideologies was from a lot of the Abrahamic religions. So
Hmm.
it's always interesting to me to see it. So thank you for that. And so after you came to America and kind of explored and went through your process and got into this channeling, what are some of the things that you feel are so drastically different between the two places? Because I know a few people from Israel, but I don't know them well, and we never talk about,
Mhm.
um, where they live or what they do when they're there or anything like that. So,
You see, it's actually interesting. When you speak to people from Israel, the conversations can go really deep, really quickly. So there's actually this deep spirituality without the religion aspect that you find in Israeli people and culture. So it is a part of the culture, even though they're not aware of the mystical, magical application or yeah, application or implication of that way of living. Here, but also don't forget that I left Israel when I was 19. So I grew up there, but I never lived there as an adult. So my exposure as a living adult has really been more American than Israeli. So
yeah, 19, you're just
yeah,
starting to understand who you are as a person.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, that makes sense too, and the the reason I ask these things too, because the cultural exchanges that we have now with the internet, it's amazing, and
Hmm.
you see a lot of great things coming from that, and the integration of these different perspectives that we have. Like a lot of people from Norway, Sweden, they bring a lot of these certain aspects into conversations, and because they see things so differently, and then people from Africa and Asia and all over the world. So it's always interesting for me, where you're born geographically or where you've spent time geographically as to how you see the world and things like that too. So,
Hmm.
um, so in your channeling, you've developed the connection with the Hathors, and you connected with Sananda and Christ consciousnesses.
Hmm.
So now, where are you at? Do you still channel mostly just the Hathors, or do you channel a lot of different types of consciousnesses or energies? Or what's your probably most channeled energy that you do now?
Yeah, I would say Hathor is still my most channeled entity. I do not see her as one entity, and Isis has joined the party, and they're from the same pathway of the Divine Feminine. And Isis is more involved with light language and energy work and energy flow. And Hathor, like you mentioned, more earth energy. Um, there's actually a lot with both of them. But so Hathor is still a main one. Another main source that I absolutely love and people react so fondly to is Viola the fairy. So also the last time I was at the Monroe Institute, I did the Starlines program, and that's where I met a counterpart of myself named Viola. She is a fairy, possibly with Arcturus connections, and she's one of my regulars as well. I have uh, different council of light that I channel. So there are different sources, but still Hathor is my main one.
Yeah, I have a friend who channels Hathors quite a bit too. Daniel
Really?
Scranton. Yeah, he channels the Hathors quite a bit, and he always kind of expressed his love for how that energy feels, and a lot of the
Mhm.
time with him they deal with sound,
Yes,
and sound
yes.
vibration. Is that
That's
some
one of their
theme that you notice?
specialty.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So this is one of their main specialties, sound and frequency is and working with sound in that way. And not only that, working with sound and the energy of the earth together. That plus their ability to control consciousness in such a directed way, allows them also to manipulate matter. I think that's how the pyramids were created, for example. So yes, this has come through in my channeling as well. One of the main thing that, in terms of sound, that Hathor taught me is sound field tuning. So one of the sound, there are different sounds that they make So it's not exactly like light language, although you could see it as a form of light language, but the different sounds and tones. And the way they explained it to me is that these sounds work with our own energy field individually, each person that in the group, each person present, and it amplifies the energy field. So we start overlapping with each other, and then we start resonating in coherence as a group. And that amplifies our energy even more. And then usually the channeling happens after the field tuning, not always, it's not a prerequisite, but when I do field tuning, it raises the vibration of the whole room, of everyone that's present. And the channeling, I think, reaches people more deeply that way.
Oh yeah, the sound has a huge effect on people. That's why, the Monroe Institute was such a powerful thing for me. And my friend Daniel, who does the Hathor, he actually uses a lot of toning, and he's one person who connects, when he connects the channeling, does similar to what I do. I ohm to get into the space, to get into the trance,
Mm-hmm.
and the different tones, overtones, undertones. And he has a magnificent way that he expresses that.
Yeah.
So I know that you've done light language. Is that where the light language comes from in the Hathors, or is it different each time? Or can you share a little bit about your connection to the light language, and also, the different maybe aspects or attributes of that?
Yeah, so I see the light language is actually different. Now, you can see light language as a big umbrella, and then the field tuning can be included in it as just sounds that are not English, that are not known language. But for me, the light language, in terms of language, has been different. And it's a specific flow that, in my personal experience, in my practice, connects me to Isis specifically. And I feel like she's the one who taught me her language. And it's a specific flow that I think maybe connected actually to Sirius, to the Syrian lineage. And it's a language that I believe is related to there. And it's also very connected to energy, what we call energy healing, because the light language is actually using this sound to manipulate our own energy, not in the field tuning. The field tuning, I feel, is more general, but the light language, especially the Isis light language, it's almost like weaving light around our spine and around, depending on the need, our different part of our system, and moving it with the language, with the light language, to achieve certain things, to create certain movements, to encode certain light codes. So that's how I feel the light language.
Well, that's amazing. Yeah, light language is such a unique thing. It's something I first heard of. I had a guest on. Her name was Lola Singer, and she was the first person I ever met. When she had a session with one of my guides, they brought that term up, and I'd never heard it before. And
Mm-hmm.
since then, I did a deep dive, and it's very interesting to see how it comes through. They have the galactic energies that bring these specific races, that bring specific light languages, and they're all differently expressed through the human vessel. And then you have all of these collectives that work with the energy and do light language, and the effects can
Mm-hmm.
be drastically different. You can have two people in one room getting the same light language encodement or
Mm-hmm.
downloads, and they're both getting different things from it, which I've always
Mm-hmm.
found fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, the energy of Isis, this is something that's very Egyptian. When you say Isis, that's the first thing that is invoked in the mind of most
Mm-hmm.
people. So, uh, have you ever done the channeling with Isis that kind of explained what that connection to Egypt was, or specifically kind of how the light language energy worked with the Egyptians?
Oh, I actually have not. So I mainly explored the Egypt connection through Hathor, who is also an Egyptian goddess.
Yeah.
So that is how I mostly explored the Egypt connection. Now, in terms of Isis, I know that she has had her own temples in terms of like sacred teachings and working with energy for energy healing. So I feel like her specific specialty was a part of that, that somehow related that energy work and that light language. I feel like is specifically related to the Isis sacred teaching and sacred knowledge, while Hathor is more a more general mother archetype,
Okay.
and as we mentioned, works a lot with the energy, the frequency of the earth. Apparently there is actual electricity energy that the earth generates, that can be utilized in certain ways. And Hathor is an expert of utilizing different earth energies and frequencies and working with sounds and tones, as we mentioned.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I appreciate that too, because you know, this is the beauty of having two different people talking about these subjects, because both of us have seen different sides of that. So that's something maybe you can ask Isis next time you connect with that energy about why
Mhm.
the name and that vibration is so
Mm,
introduced in
mm,
that. We're also getting not super close to our time where we go to lightning round, but enough
mhm,
where I wanted to ask a couple more questions, and then if you have a desire to maybe do a little bit of light language as an example for people, I think they would really enjoy that.
yeah, sure.
All right. So before we get to light language, just a couple last things. Like, what are now that you've got all of this, under your belt, and you've been working in professional channeling for a few years now, and you're doing it daily and doing it exclusively, what's the energy shifted to? Like, before, you might do readings with people. What kind of things do you do now with your channeling and with your other aspects of work for clients?
Mhm. Yes, so I hold weekly channeling groups on Sundays, and it's a really beautiful space. It's a small group, and we get to be in that beautiful. You know how it is when you channel, the whole room is electrified. There's really a substance to it, a texture to it. And it's for me, it's very energizing. And from what I hear from my group as well. So we hold this beautiful, beautiful space and we engage in conversations with those guides. So that's one thing that I do. And I I also have light language groups and classes. So there's are you asking what I'm offering clients or
Well, yeah, just where most of your work is with clients
Mhm.
these days, and
Yeah.
and I'll definitely want to touch back on specifics at the
Hmm.
end of our show, for
Yeah.
sure. But just kind of, where do you see most people who come to you to get
Hmm.
assistance or help? Where are their
Yeah.
desires at? What kind of services are mostly being
Hmm.
sought out by other people?
Yeah. Yeah, so people usually come to me because they are aware of the changes that are happening. They feel it on themselves, they see it in the environment, and they either need support and help in transitioning because it's intense and it can be really difficult, or they just want empowerment and to feel even more connected to their own intuition, to their own guide, to their own inner power. And that is also why people come to me. Also, a lot of people feel the same passion for the divine feminine and for the earth, which we haven't touched much about the earth and nature and how that plays into all of that. But I've had a very, very strong connection to nature, plants, animals, since I was very, very little. And that has come through in my channeling. But also, Hathor herself, as the divine feminine, as the archetypal mother, is related to Mother Earth and to nature and to animals and plants. So it's all connected. And I find that a lot of people that are coming to me, that are attracted to come to me, also have this strong connection with nature and feel that calling as a part of their evolution and their connection.
That's interesting, and that's beautiful too. And yeah, so the divine feminine energy, this has been described by 100 people I've talked to 100 different ways. I'd like to hear kind of what is the divine feminine to you.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
What the divine feminine to me, you see, for the reason I think I started using the words divine feminine is because I really didn't like the word goddess.
Right.
and but it's good that I did that, because exactly unintentionally, but it I did leave it more open. And it's true that the divine feminine is much more open than a goddess. A goddess, it's as if it's one being. And the divine feminine is something much more open and abstract than that. It's a specific flow of energy that is a part of everything, but carries the feminine traits. So, for example, a more masculine male trait is to control. A more feminine trait would be to go with the flow and just kind of be in the moment. Uh, so, aggression is naturally a more male trait, while being passive is a natural, more feminine trait. But obviously, you want a balance. So, the divine feminine is really, really big and difficult to define, but it's the feminine essence in all there is, if we're going really, really big in terms of the definition. And within it, you can find a lot of pathways that are more specific. So, if we take Hathors or Isis, these would be more specific pathways or flows of the divine feminine, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and the reason I asked that because there's a lot of talk in a spiritual community about divine feminine, and in some pockets of that comes like a almost like a bastardization of masculine energy.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always seen there's divine energy in both, and I like
Mm-hmm.
that you said that you have to have a balance there because that's exactly what my guides have shared. Even if you're more masculine than feminine or more feminine than masculine, you have to be able to integrate some of the other
Mm-hmm.
aspects into yourself to make yourself more at balance.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's why there is two different kinds because that energy. And
Mm-hmm.
as a person who's pretty masculine and holds that energy well but considers myself pretty balanced,
Mm-hmm.
um, I love the fact that people now seem to be more integrated. I've noticed this trend where more women are exploring more masculine features right
Mm-hmm.
now and more men are exploring feminine features.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're doing that because for so many years we've just been forced into our roles. And
Mm-hmm.
now getting a chance to explore that gives us the opportunity to integrate it on a larger collective level, which I think is beautiful.
Yeah, beautifully said.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And
Yeah,
so,
and I would
oh,
just like to add to what you said that yes, we strive for balance, but we're never 50-50. So the fact that we strive for balance does not mean that Yafi or Rob is going to be exactly 50-50% in perfect balance between male and female. You were born male. And it's not even that. There are people that were born male and lean more feminine. But the idea is that
mhm.
you have your own personal patterns and makeup, and that is fine. The goal is not to erase them and make you a blank slate. So I think that's kind of important to mention. You want to be a balanced, integrated who you are.
Absolutely. It's that it hits home. My guides have said to some people, they're like, I want to be more feminine. My masculinity is, and they're like, well, you have a balance within you, and your balance is, 90% masculine and 10% feminine. So as long
Hmm.
as you nurture that feminine side, then you're going to feel balanced.
Hmm.
So I really love how you shared that too. We have some time now too, if you want to do some light language and kind of share that example with everyone. Because every
Yeah.
time we have a light language person on, I try to get at least a few minutes of
Hmm.
them doing it because I think the example for people to hear the different kinds is also really great.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to call Isis over, and I'm going to open to her and allow her to give a little, I don't know, whatever she wants, energy transmission or a class or a lesson. I'm going to open it to her and take it from there. Nirahay anaras at Ekranay ist anarapot Hiranayast umarakat arast Hiyanaraha Humanorost oyak ratan anarakapa Hirastumanarat Hiarak anaharast Hiyan irak atubat arastina karariahast anna Hurahayahana Hiya rustanaраkat at ayah Inarast Hiya naria Hirast Ikarast ayah Huruma Heranum ayak rastan Hurast iya Hiyanarohum Hure hiyana Harost Orot anna Hi oruhum ha
Thank you so much. That's beautiful. I really enjoyed that. That's amazing. And we have enough time too if you want to bring in Isis Hathor or whoever, just for maybe a quick 3 to 5 minute share about something that we can all take home with us. That would be great too.
Sure.
Thank you.
So I'll call Hathor over and I'll let you ask her a question, whatever question you want. So
Oh, yay. Thank you.
let me call her. Blessings. It is our pleasure to be here. It is both Hathor and Isis, alongside several others that are here, ready to answer any question you may have for us.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us. I really am grateful for your presence. And the question that I think is most important as a collective sense, from my perspective, the world has shifted a lot in the last 4 or 5 years, especially. And it's shaken a lot of people to the core. A lot of people don't know what to believe anymore. A lot of people don't know how to deal with some of the larger issues with society, with their household, with relationships, or just with themselves. And
Mm.
I'm wondering if there's anything that you can share when people are going through a hectic emotional time or a hectic mental time that might help them find a better way to get back on track or a better way to balance their selves.
Yes. Of course, there is much that we can say about the matter, but we will start by saying that in this time of uncertainty and of changes, you hear a lot of voices all around you. People have very strong opinions about every topic you can imagine. So it is very important to develop a relationship with the self where you can start trusting in what you feel is right or wrong, what you feel resonates with your own feeling of what's really true, of your own inner knowing. This asset, this skill will become more and more important as this time continues. The storm of changes is not quite over yet, and there is more to come. So, in order not to be swept away by your own fear or others' fear, you must find this solid ground within yourself. And as we mentioned, the ability to discern what feel resonant and what does not. So you do not have to depend on others to dictate what's true or not in your reality.
I really appreciate that. I think with humans, one of the hardest parts of not letting into fear is when we see the experience of others happening around us, or we're constantly engaged with whatever influence media, social media. There tends to be the repeated signal over and over and over
Mm.
again. You should be afraid. I'm afraid. We're all afraid.
Mhm.
So how best can we deal with that, and still keep our connection to the collective and still be able to go on social media,
Yes.
or hopefully not watching news, but doing something where you can still
Yes.
stay connected?
Yes. You must you must decide what kind of relationship you want to have with the collective conscious. Once you know within yourself what the nature of this relationship, it will help guide you in specific situation to know how much you want of each um, kind of interaction. How much can you take without losing your center? How much can you give without depleting yourself? How much can you connect to others that are on the same level as you and therefore amplify each other's energy and become more empowered in that way? So start with the value, start with the knowing of what your relationship with the collective conscious is. What would you like it to be? And once you know your role, once you know who you are in that relationship, it will be much easier for you to then set rules and boundaries and guidelines in terms of how to apply it practically in your life so you can stay connected to the outside world in a way that doesn't compromise your inner connection.
I really like that. I think that can be helpful for a lot of people. And the last question that I'll ask you, since we have you here, and I'm grateful for your sharing, is the dynamic of relationships themselves are probably most contentious at family levels for most people, and that might be a parent or a sibling or a child. um,
Mm,
how do we go through those? Because a lot of people believe that if I'm in a family, I have to remain a part of this family, and
mm,
if I'm in a family, I'm supposed to naturally love these people.
mm,
But what happens when that dynamic goes really bad and it becomes your major stress in life?
mm. Yes. Again, there's so many aspects that we can get into, but we will say that once again, you should know, decide in advance, know in advance what role you would like to play within your own life, within your own family dynamics, close family, less close family. And once you've decided these roles, once you've decided what you want to be and how you want to be, then in practice, you have to then decide moment by moment how much you should adhere to your original desire and how much you should bend yourself for the other. And again, it is a learning curve as you go along, but you must start. The starting point, the origin point is your knowing. You must know yourself and your role and place within your family and within any system you engage in. And that will give you the guideline. Now, we would like to touch one more thing that you mentioned, that if these are your family, you should love them. Here comes the issue of the word love and what it means. As humans, you often feel or think that loving someone is the same as liking them, endorsing them, or being in love with them. And this is not the case. Loving someone in the true sense is seeing them for who they really are, in their light, in their power, in their spirit. Often, beyond where they can see themselves. And it does not mean endorsing behaviors that are destructive, that are hurting themselves or others. It does mean seeing a bigger potential for themselves and for yourself, and approaching the relationship from that perspective. In a practical behavioral mean, that may mean spending less time with them or not enabling them, not allowing them to be in a certain way that is not conducive to growth and development.
So boundaries are a good thing.
Boundaries are necessary. It is a part of your learning as a human to find and define your boundary.
Well, thank you so much. That's beautiful, and I really, really appreciate your insight, your presence, and I very much appreciate your willingness to come and chat with humans and do the
Mm.
communication thing. We really appreciate it.
We appreciate humans like yourself that are desiring this connection and are able to hold this level of conversation and energy. So the appreciation and the love is definitely mutual.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay, I am back.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. That was great, and I really appreciate the insight too, because I think these are some of the things most of the people I know are really struggling with, and it's good to have insights and perspectives on these things, especially tools working with. We're at our time now where I want to do the lightning round. It's five,
Mhm.
six, maybe seven benevolent questions.
Okay.
And we can go through them quickly. And if you don't want to go through one, you can always say skip, and then we can
Okay.
just go to the next one. But
No
there's only
problem.
one that's ever been issue related, and it's usually family trauma related. But
Mm.
yeah, we'll get to that one. Well, let's
All
start
right.
with that
Oh.
one, so you're not nervous about it. What was your favorite childhood memory?
My favorite childhood memory. Can I cheat and go to the UFO experience?
Yeah, yeah, by all means, do that. Yeah.
Yeah, why not? No, I'll go with something else. It's a very, very, very early childhood, but it's just extremely, extremely pleasant. I have this memory. I must have been maybe 3 years old. I don't know. I was already walking, but I was very little. And every night I would run to my bed and I would wait for my mom to come and cover me with a blanket. And just that action of her covering with the blanket and feeling the blanket softly landing on my body, I don't know why, but for some reason I remember that so vividly. There was so much comfort in that moment at night going to sleep. So I don't even think it's something that I remembered until I don't know, but I'll go with that as my favorite childhood memory.
I love that. I actually enjoyed that up until I was 8 or 9. I would always have I was like, "Hey, come and fluff the blanket up for me," and she would throw it over me. That's beautiful. I love that. Thank you. So let's start where we normally start. What's your favorite color?
Purples and blues. I used to say violet for the longest time, but it's expanding and expanding. So purples and blues.
You're in the purple gang. That's great. There have been a couple others on the show that do purple too. I love that. Um, what is your favorite food?
Ooh, pizza.
Gotta be that's when anyone answers anything but that. I'm like, I don't know.
I like healthy food too. Like I love avocado. I'm obsessed with avocado and I eat fruits and vegetables, but pizza.
It is heavenly. There's no escape from that. I don't eat it as much as I used to, but definitely. Thank you for that. What's your favorite song and or band?
Mm. Oh, let's see. My favorite band. I would say, even though I don't listen to her as much as I used to, Deva Premal is probably still my favorite. Assuming you know her.
No,
Uh,
I have not
really?
heard that name. Yeah, no.
She sings Sanskrit mantras mostly, and beautiful, beautiful voice. Her and her husband have been working together for decades. Definitely recommend listening to her. Deva Premal,
Pre-
Deva
hmm
Premal.
I will. I will. Every time I hear a name I have never heard of before, I always check it. And there's a 50-50 shot my wife knows who that is because,
Probably.
yeah, she
She
used
probably
to listen
does.
to a lot of Hindu mantras. Or she was a practicing Hindu for a while.
Mm.
Beautiful. So, what is um your favorite animal?
Mm. Well, I do have two very beloved dogs, so I may have to say dogs, but butterfly was my animal totem for years. It may be changing now. I don't know what it is right now. So, also butterfly, and I also really love dolphins because they're just amazing.
Dolphins are great, and my wife did in fact know who that was. um, the let's see. What I know I'm missing one already. What is your favorite place that you've ever been to in the world where you appreciate? 'Cause you're a nature person, so this one might be
Mhm.
rough for you. Where's the place that you've both enjoyed a place in nature for its beauty and for the feeling and vibration of it?
Yeah. So there have been a lot, but I would say Costa Rica is really, really great. Just the nature and the birds is just so lush. It's amazing. And in the US, I really, really like Sedona and Flagstaff. That combination of green mountains in Flagstaff and amazing red rocks and vortices in Sedona. So in the US, Sedona, Flagstaff definitely have a special place in my heart.
I just went to Sedona the first time last year in October, and I did not get out to Flagstaff, but everyone told me I need to. So I'm definitely going. I'll be back there in a few months, so I'm going to check out Flagstaff while we're there too.
I can't
But
believe it was your first time in Sedona.
yeah, I'm in Michigan, so like the only
Mm.
time we would go out west is to go to LA, because most the other channelers we knew who did the channel panel lived out there, so we wanted to make it
Mhm.
easy for them to attend. But yeah, I always wanted to set something up, but right as we started to get ready to set up an event there, Kalina got pregnant with Lilith, and then
Mm.
she had a rough pregnancy, and then since then, I told you about all the health and development
Mhm.
issues that she went through. So yeah, once I started back within a year, I got an invitation from someone else, so I didn't have to set up my own event. And I'm like, all right, I'm going.
Yes.
So we're going to be there a lot. We're actually going to do our channel panel there in 2015 or 20. I always say that 2025.
Mhm.
So it'll be great too. But yeah, place it's definitely a special feel out there.
Mhm.
The only places in the U.S. I felt those types of vibes from before Sedona was Asheville, and Asheville I've always considered
Yes.
the East Coast version of Sedona. You know, the
Yes.
spiritual vortex and the mountains and the great
Yes.
beauty. Yeah.
I love hiking in North Carolina. Waterfall hiking is probably my favorite.
It's gorgeous out there. Kalina's family lives out there, and that's why we started
Mm.
going out there to do events and stuff too, so we could double as a time to see them went
Mm-hmm.
before her mom passed away too. So
Mm.
yeah, it's beautiful out there. Well, I appreciate that answer too. And I know I'm missing one. I'm racking my brain.
Hmm.
Um, I know I'm missing one. I guess it's really not that important, but these helped us get to know you as a person
Mm-hmm.
better, and I appreciate you sharing those with us. So before I want to give you an opportunity to tell people what you've got going on, how to get a hold of you, the services you have, all those things. But before we do
Mm-hmm.
that, I just wanted to say I appreciate getting to know you. I didn't know you
Likewise.
before, and Debbie connected us, but
Mm-hmm.
also Ruben had told me that he had connected with you before.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've heard good things about you, and I'm really glad I got a chance to experience your channeling and light language firsthand. And I really appreciate who you are as a person. I think people in our community who teach balance and who teach acceptance and who teach love and don't come from an area of self. I really can appreciate that because I think community and connections to others is the way that we go upwards and outwards. So thank you for
Absolutely.
being all of that, and thank you for coming to the show. And I know you have a busy life too, and I just appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Rob. I really, really appreciate you, your show, everything that you do.
Oh, I appreciate that. And please feel free, just let everybody know how they can get a hold of you. I've got all the websites, social media links that you had given to me posted below. But if you can tell
Excellent.
people how to get a hold of you and what you're up to, I'd love to hear.
Yeah, yeah, really simple. My website is yafichanneling.com. Yafi, my name, Yafi, channeling.com. You can get in touch with me there. You can find links to how to buy my books there. My book, Conversations with the Earth, is found on Amazon or any other major bookstores. The audiobook is coming soon. It's almost ready. My sound engineer had some issues, but the ebook and the soft cover are out. And on YouTube, it's my full name, Yafi Yair, Yafi Yair. And on Facebook, Dr. Yafi Yair. So it's pretty much the same all around.
Awesome. And do you have anything, events or gatherings or things like that that you've got coming up that you're excited about?
Yes, I will be at Conscious Life Expo, so we will meet in person there, which is
Yay!
great. Yay! I also have a booth. I can't wait. It's my first time doing Conscious Life Expo. Saturday, I will be presenting in channeling at night at 9 p.m. And on Sunday, I will be leading a past life regression experience so people can experience it for themselves and see what it's like to remember all these different aspects of the self.
Well, that's beautiful. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you there, and it's my first year there too. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
great.
so I'm definitely excited. Uh, I've been pushed by people to go there a few times before, but this, life was crazy and up until
Mhm.
last year. So, um, and do you have any? You said that you do like weekly classes and or monthly classes. Can you share a little bit about that too?
Yes, absolutely. So I do weekly group channeling. So every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, it's on Zoom. I keep my prices super affordable. So it's very, very easy for people to attend one time regularly. If you want to attend one time, it's $10 for the group. And people get to ask questions. And I do that every Sunday. You just have to get in touch with me to get the link and to pay, of course. I also teach light language. I love teaching light language. I see it as channeling 101. It's learning to be clear, to be in that flow, and to express it with your voice. And the reason it's light language is because I do not focus on verbal channeling. So people don't have to think about what is coming through or what they're saying. So it really is channeling 101. It's 5 lessons. It's a beautiful module. We're small classes. There's different breath work and exercises that we do together. And these are, I would say, that and individual sessions, of course, are my main offerings at this point.
I love that. Well, thank you for sharing all that. And if you guys are interested, please check out the link below and go to Yafi's website. And before we go, there's one more question that I didn't ask you.
Mm.
Um, the name Yafi, what does that mean? Is there a meaning behind the name?
Yes, yes. So in Hebrew, actually, all the names have meanings, all of them. So my first name, Yafi, is from the root of the word beauty. I was actually named after my grandma Bella. So it's from the word beautiful. And the word Yair means will light. So it's from the root of the word light.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's cool. It's great.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's, even the most American mundane names like my own, Rob, if you look hard enough, you can always find a meaning of what it
Mm-hmm.
used to mean back in the thing. And
Mm-hmm.
my wife and I did some digging, and my last name comes from lumberjacks.
Hmm.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
yeah, Gauthier is kind of like a French lumberjack family or whatever. So yeah, not as cool as yours,
I'm
but it's definitely
actually
great.
I'm actually getting intuitively, I have no idea how we would find that out. I'm actually getting intuitively that somehow your first name, Rob, is connected to the root of the word gift, to the word gift.
Really,
Yes.
I'll definitely look into that.
If I remember, I'll look into that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that too, and thank you for coming on. I appreciate it more than you know. And usually we don't repeat guests for 6 months to a year, but we'll definitely have you back on and chat some more if you're open to
Oh,
that.
please do. Whenever you want, I'm free to jump in.
Great. I love to hear that. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And I want to let all of you guys know too, we're going to be next week meeting here at the same time we do always, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern, that's 7 Pacific. And next week we're going to have Tom Palladino on with a scalar light technology. This should be interesting. We're going to ask him some good questions about the tech, and we're going to ask him practice. He's also offering anyone in the world for free without a credit card, to give you a free trial to do the scalar technology. And you don't have to live in his community to get it. It's a remote thing. It works through. I'm not going to explain it for him because my understanding is pretty rudimentary compared, I'd imagine. But he's offering that to anyone. All you have to do is send him in a picture, and he can send that healing to you. And we'll talk to him about that next week. And also, just remember, guys, if you want to check out the Conscious Life Expo or the Sedona Ascension Retreat, or the new session types, or the new book that just got released. And I forgot to mention that. That's why I brought it up earlier. The book is printed now. So now you can buy a printed copy. It was on Kindle for the first few days it was released. Now it's print worthy. You can go to the website, check that out. Actually, you can't check that on the website. I haven't added it. But if you type in Rob Gothard into Amazon, it's the newest one, Healing Sexuality. Enjoy your guys this week. I will see you next week. And this weekend, I will try my best to get a Galactic Weekly channeling back out. We just started back work this Monday, so everything's been a little. Oh no, my word! It's been a week since I said. Okay, last Monday we started. That shows you how crazy it's been, guys. So anyway, I love you guys. Thank you for being here. I will see you guys next week, Wednesday, 10 o'clock Eastern, and we'll see you guys on the other side. Good night, everybody. Thanks for being here.